Helping parents of mentally ill children. And today is March 1st, 2020. And before we get going here, I just want to, before we get started, I just need to see the come online, our live streaming. And before I introduce myself, and it looks like they're coming online now. Yeah, it looks like our YouTube channel is on live, and our Skype and the Cry Dry Tears online Facebook page, and the Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children Facebook group is online as well. So I think they're catching up, and I want to let you know that through our chat you can ask some questions tonight. But really, tonight I'm going to dedicate this show to my parents. It's been 2 years since my mom and dad passed away, and they were very, very supportive in my recovery. But before I talk about that, let's just give you a background. So my name is Bill McPhee, and I was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1987, and I was hospitalized 6 different times. I lived in 3 different group homes. I had a suicide attempt, and I spent 5 years, 5 long years on the couch dealing with depression, a deep, deep, dark depression. And then through certain circumstances, throughout my recovery, I started to publish a mental health magazine called SZ Magazine, and I did that for 23 years. And now I'm retired, but my hobby is basically selling my book. And my book is called To Cry a Dry Tear, Bill McPhee's Journey of Hope and Recovery with Schizophrenia. And that's my book. And usually every Sunday night we have a guest, but I just wanted to dedicate this to the 2 years passing of my parents. But next week on the show, we're always 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time live. And next week I'll have Bob from Over the Rainbow. And Bob was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and he's going to be our guest next week. So that's a little bit about me. And just before I get started about my parents and how they helped me in my recovery, I wanted to give you a little thing what I did today. So earlier on today, I was in St. Catharines, Ontario, and at the United Church, and they showed a movie called A Beautiful Mind. I'm sure a lot of you are probably know about that movie, A Beautiful Mind. It was Ron Howard produced that movie, and Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe played John Nash. So I was there, and I did an introduction to the movie, and then afterward the movie, I took some questions and spoke a little bit as well. So that was very interesting. I love that movie. It's very emotional. I got to tell you, I cry near the end. Every time I see that movie, I cry near the end. It's just so heart jerking and just so unbelievable. What he's gone through, and especially when he's getting credit for his Nobel Prize when he was in the library and all the other mathematicians and important people came and put down pens. They put a pen at his desk and congratulated him and everything like that. Very very moving film. And I actually got to meet John Nash at a conference that I was at one time. And John and his wife now are passed away. They both, I'm not sure how long, quite a while ago, but they were on their way home from a conference, and they caught a cab at the airport, and on their ride in the cab driver got into an accident, and both John Nash and his wife perished in that accident. So speaking of that, speaking of perishing and dying, as I mentioned in my clip, that my parents now have been deceased now for 2 years. They didn't die together, but they died very shortly, within 6 weeks of each other, and that was 2 years ago. And it was it was very they were very good to me. So just want to give you some examples. My parents were always supportive, and basically there was growing up, my mom had bipolar illness, but um, back then it was called manic depressive, and even back then, way back then, it was called a nervous breakdown or mom's sick again. And my mother was in the hospital literally almost every year, every 2 years. She was in for a long time. For a long time, she had many shock treatments and on lots and lots of medication. And back in those days, psychiatry used to blame families and things like that. So my dad went through a lot with my mom and my whole family, and really I don't. I don't consider myself having a great childhood. I mean, I have no regrets, and I loved my parents. But there's a lot of tragedy every time in our household. My mom would be getting paranoid and sick, and she'd accuse my she'd accuse my father of running around and that, and my mom was, just very, very ill. And to tell you the truth, to tell you the truth, I, uh, I thought my mom was weak. I thought that it was a character flaw. Her mental illness was a character flaw, but I can tell you that that's definitely not true. Going through my mental illness, it was the hardest thing that I ever had to go through in my life, and I can remember, being very young and growing up thinking I was very invincible and nothing could happen to me. And even my dad, I can remember my dad saying, um, "Oh, you'll never have to worry about Billy. You'll never have to worry about Billy. He's he can take care of himself," kind of thing. And then in 1987, I was hit with schizophrenia and I was hospitalized 6 different times. And I lived in 3 different group homes. I had a suicide attempt and spent 5 years on the couch. And I was scared to death that 5 years was going to turn into 7 years, and 7 years into 10 years. And because we see people, that happens, we see people like that. So yeah, so my childhood was I was always mature because I had to grow up being mature because there's a lot of turmoil in my family. But just because there's turmoil in my family and a lot of mental illness in that, there's still a lot of love, and my parents really did a lot for me. And I want to tell you a couple things that my parents, when I was ill in that, my parents always had a room for me in their house. I mean, I spent 5 years in their house, maybe six, dealing with my illness, and I always had a room. They always fed me, took care of me that way. My dad, ever since I was a little kid. My dad would always give us rides, whether it be to baseball games or to the arena to skate or play hockey, or in the winter to my friend's house and we'd play hockey. And my dad was always driving me around. When I got a job as a lifeguard when I was 15 years old, my dad would drive me to work and things like that. And that's why I do a lot of driving for my kids, and I don't mind it. I just remember the all the driving that my dad did for our family, and so when my kids need to go somewhere or want to go somewhere, I don't put up a fuss or think a second thought at all about taking them, and that's because directly what my dad did for me. As well, my dad, when I was going to group therapy was 30 minutes away, and he would drive me and he'd wait for me, and very, very supportive. Um, yeah, my dad filled out paperwork. If you ever dealing with hospital or government programs or anything, you'll know that there's tons and tons and tons of paperwork that needs to be done. And I hate paperwork. I got to tell you, I hate paperwork. But my dad faithfully did all of my paperwork, and that is very, very supportive, and I appreciate that as well, very much so. My dad, um, let's see, my dad, when I started my business, when I started publishing my magazine, I did that for 23 years. My dad started me off with a loan. He mortgaged his house, and that was very, very special. I mean, there's how many parents out there would mortgage your house for your mentally ill son, right? There's not a lot, and it's not as if we were wealthy or anything like that. My dad wasn't wealthy. We were middle class, but he did that for me. What else? My dad. He was a good provider, even growing up in our family. Um, my dad always bought groceries for us, no problem. We were always well fed. And my dad didn't eat a lot, but between myself and my other two brothers and my sister, is that we'd eat and eat. I mean, eat a lot. And my dad never ever complained about us eating too much or going into the fridge all the time. We had no rules and that, and very good like that. My dad coached. Didn't coach me, but coached my brother's team. He coached baseball and hockey. Um, my dad would take me when I played younger. When I was younger and I played hockey, my dad drove me to the games, drove me to the arena all the time. No problems. I probably played hockey for quite a few years. I wasn't a very good hockey player. I was big. I was a good checker, but I think in my whole career, I only got one goal, and that was on my own net. But anyways, yeah, my dad coached baseball. I think it's to baseball and everything like that. So, we never had um, a job when I was younger. My first job was when I was 12 years old. But before that, I never got an allowance or anything like that. But if my friends and I wanted to go see a movie or something like that, my dad always had money for me, and just had to ask him and things like that, and it was good. So my dad was very, 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 very good to me. My mom, now just to be a little bit more, my mom was she really was a good mom. She was a homemaker, and because my mom was sick a lot in the hospital, I grew up not having a lot of respect for my mother. And but you know what? My mom, she was always there. When people are dealing with mental illness, you don't sleep a lot, or at least sometimes sleep is scattered. And there is many times at 3 in the morning I'd be in the kitchen, and my mom would be right there. We'd be having a cup of tea together. Might not have any conversation or back and forth at all, but she was there. She was there with me. Um, my mom was always, she was a worrier in the family, but my mom, she was always there that way. Always provided, cooked. My mom made my bed in the morning every day. She'd make my bed. Always cook for us and that, and yeah. Um, my mom was always looking out for us. She helped my sister. My sister had triplets and was always babysitting the triplets, and I would go along with her. I kind of followed her for that 5 years when I was very, very ill, really lost in depression, and that my mom would go to babysit, and I'd just tag along with her, and just almost kind of like a mother duck, to wherever the mother duck goes, the babies are kind of behind or following her, and my mom would go walking with me all the time. We'd go walking together. She's just very good. Always. I say hello to everybody. I'm very nice. I say hello to everybody when I'm walking the dog in the morning. I say hi to everybody. If I'm out for a walk, anybody I pass, I have. And people say I get that from my mom, because my mom was a great greeter. Even in the nursing home. In the nursing home, when she was in there, she was telling everybody. She'd say, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" and everything like that. And she was very outgoing and friendly. And a lot of people told me that I was outgoing and friendly as well. Um, yeah, it was really good. So, what else did I want to just tell you about my parents? Is just that my my mom. I can remember, not a lot of conversation going on, and my mom would always tell my dad. My dad's name was Bill too, and my mom would say, "Bill, talk to Billy. Bill, talk to Billy. Talk to him." And he'd say, "Well, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say?" And that, you know. So that was kind of neat. Another big. I had I have three children. I have three children. I have William, and William was with from a girl I was in a relationship with, and he's 33 now. And I was going through my illness and everything like that, and having the emotional blandness of schizophrenia, being depressed, and that I had a lack of joy, an emotional bluntness, a blandness, and there wasn't a lot of bonding going on with my son William at the time. And my mom said, "Well, no matter how you feel, I love him. I love William." And I'd always say, and she'd always say, anytime she saw a little kid, "Oh, God love those little kids. Oh, God love the kids," and just really like that. And so she took in all my William, my first son, and babysat many times and had over and everything like that. And then when I was married, I have two kids from my wife Aileen, ex-wife now, but with my wife Aileen, and we I had two kids with Aileen. Dwight, who's 17 now, he'll be 18 in May, and Hannah, she's 15. She'll be 16 in November, and they live with me here at my house. And yeah, but my wife, she comes over. My ex-wife, she still comes over. It's been amicable. It's we have a great relationship. I mean, she cuts my hair. She comes over and sees the kids all the time. She brings food. She cooks sometimes. Make sure that the house is tidy and things like that. But no, she's very. It's a very good. When we got divorced, there was no animosity. We didn't even go through a lawyer. We didn't have to fight over the kids or anything like that, and everything was good. Everything was just, it was both of our faults, and no one blames each other, and we're better as friends than we were as husband and wife. But no, but that's very interesting. But no, my mom was a great person, and I really appreciate them how they had that. So that's a little bit about my parents, and I just wanted to say that. Does anybody have any questions? If you have a question, the chat is open. Feel free. I won't keep it open a long time, but I just wanted to tell you that both my parents, my dad and mom, were in the nursing home together, and yeah, they were married for I think it was like 50 years over. No, 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 no. They were married for a long time. Actually, it was my dad's. My mom was married before and had three children. So my two brothers and my sister Kathy were actually half brothers and half sister. And my dad adopted my siblings and with my mom. Yeah, and I used to go visit my mom when she was in the hospital all the time, up with my dad, even as a little boy, not being able to be go up to see her, because at those days you had to be 12 to go see up on the ward, and I was just young, so I would just be in the waiting room, and the waiting room had a well. I remember that it was the Welland Ontario Hospital, and they had a wishing well there. And I would always wish that my mom would get better. But yeah, so anyways, that's a little bit about my parents and what they did for me. Like I say, they always had a roof over. They always had a place for me to stay. I always had food. They drove me different places. They accepted me. Very, very supportive. Now, I just want to let you know that if you're a parent and every family dynamic is different, and if your children are estranged or not not in the house, or not close to you, unfortunately that's too bad. But again, there's not two families alike. The family dynamics are different with everybody, with every family. And I like to say that every family is dysfunctional to a certain degree. There's no such thing as a functional family, and so that's about it. So that's about it. I'm not going to go on and on. I just wanted to do a tribute to them, kinda. And next week, next Sunday at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, I'm going to have Bob from Over the Rainbow, and Bob does a podcast with people with mental illness. So he'll be here via Skype and on the screen here for you next week. And if you wanted to be a guest, feel free to go to my website, billmcphee.ca. McPhee is MacPhee. So billmcphee.ca, and you can have a contact form there. You'll find my email. And if you want to come in as a guest, feel free. We've had many guests over the last few weeks. I had Betsy Ross, who was a veteran in the U.S. I had Kim Lamontang, who was an advocate and mental health advocate there. Had Dan Barrett, who dealt with depression there on his broadcast. Last week I had Martha Mason, who was a turning point in my recovery. And this week I'm dedicating it to my parents. And like I say, next week we'll have Bob. And then we'll have other guests lined up. I'm going to be having, what is Daryl's name? Daryl Herman, an author there, and his wife. We're going to have them on the show. So anyways, just want to share that. Now, before I go, just want to check. Do you have any questions for me coming up on the live chat? I see none, so I'm going to end that here. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So just go to the website, billmcphee.ca, and you'll learn more about all that. So have a great evening, everybody. May God bless you, and share. You can sign up for our newsletter so you won't miss what's coming up. We send a newsletter out every week telling you what's been in the past broadcast and what's coming up in the future. So just go to my website, billmcphee.ca. Bye-bye, everybody. May God bless, and have a good day.